Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my photo chat live stream where we come together as a community and talk about photography. And as always, I like it to be an open Q&A. So if you have any questions or want my opinion on anything, I'll do my best to answer them and share my thoughts with you on that. And also, I like to catch up on what I've been up to, share a few images that I did this week. And because photography is kind of a journey, right? And it's all about the journey. And I kind of came to uh, I don't want to call it an epiphany. That'd be a little bit too dramatic, but it 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 kind of hit me in a different way uh, when I was shopping for antique radios of all things. I was just feeling nostalgic, and I said, it'd be kind of cool to have an old AM/FM radio. Uh, and I'll come back to this a little bit later and what kind of hit me about that, uh, and how it relates to my photography and my buying gear that I buy. So there's that, and also there's some rumors out about uh, OM Systems maybe coming out with a new camera and lenses in September. So I see a lot of chatter already on the chat section about that. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well, and what I think we'll probably get, you know. So there's that, and I was watching Jimmy Chang's recent video about his 10-year. He didn't say he was quitting, but he was having. There's some new laws or something going into place in the UK that could affect his channel, and as many of my peers will attest to, with some notable exceptions, all of our channels are uh, seeing kind of a decline, in revenue and in viewers, subscriptions, all of that stuff. It doesn't bother me, it's, I'm very, very thankful for the viewers that I have, and many of you have been with me a long time. And I'm always happy to see new viewers as they come in. But my goal here is really just to help as many people as I can, as long as I can, and that's all I really want is to do that. And of course, any support that you guys provide is greatly appreciated. Through the donations and using my affiliate links, all that good stuff. Subscribing, hitting the like button. The usual mantras with having a YouTube channel here. But that said, I think it's important that you do subscribe and use the show my subscribed channels, thing on the menu on YouTube. So you can just go right to your favorite creators and watch them before you get recommendations from YouTube, right? Because when you open up YouTube, it gives you a ton of recommendations, which I love. It exposes a lot of things that I've never seen before that I found interesting. But at the same time, the best way to support your favorite channels is to just go to your subscribe and go to your subscription button on the menu and see what's going on. What's the latest things going on with them? So I recommend doing that for all of your favorite creators. You know, and Jimmy Chang's also mentioned he's been on. Yeah, I just realized I've been on for 10 years, a little over 10 years as well. I started January of 2016, and I just can't believe how time flies. So thank you everyone that's been with me all these years. Thank you for the new subscribers and new viewers. It is greatly appreciated, and I always try to do my best for you. Um, for as long as I can. So, uh, that said, let's get on to a couple of the topics, and I'll start with the rumors first because that seems to be what everyone wants to talk about. Uh, so Anthony says, hoping for an all-new 24 megapixel stack sensor, all-new image processor available in the OM1 Mark III that might be announced in September. I'm going to put a hard no on that. I seriously doubt it. The reason I say that is, there just isn't a consumer off-the-shelf Sony sensor stacked 24 megapixel right now. There just isn't. The 24, 25 megapixel in the G9 Mark II is made by Panasonic, is by all accounts. I can't say that for sure, but it's not a Sony sensor. So, OM Systems is not going to be able to get that one. I'm sure Panasonic has, all rights to that sensor. So that said, what what are they going to use? They're not going to make their own sensor. They just don't have the bandwidth to create their own sensors or design their own sensor. They're just going to buy something off the shelf. And if you look at it historically, camera companies will use the same sensor for 10 years. And there's so many videos out there about, uh, cameras from 10 years ago are just as good as the ones today, you know, more or less, right? Uh, but in terms of just sheer image quality. So if there's nothing off the shelf from Sony, then how are they, OM Systems just cannot, they don't have their own fabrication plant to make their own sensors. Uh, Now, if they go to someone other than Sony to buy their sensors, it's not going to be cheap, you know, because they're going to have to do some R&D, whatever third party, not third party, but some other fabrication company other than Sony. Uh, and there's just nothing out there. And there's the new Lofic processor, or I'm sorry, sensor that, right now it's kind of expensive and it's still only in the 1-inch sensor size. So there's no format for that for Micro Four Thirds. There's a global shutter that's in the Micro Four Thirds size, but that is really expensive. I mean, you're talking about doubling the price of the camera by trying to put a global shutter in a Micro Four Thirds camera. So that's just not going to happen. Uh, so these are the reasons I think I seriously doubt it. I would be pleasantly surprised and a little shocked if that happens, but it's not going to happen. Not for another 2-3 years. We're going to be working at 20 megapixels, the stack sensor, for the next 2 to 4 years, in my opinion. So I just don't see it happening. But if it does, great. But I doubt it. And hopefully we'll see an all-new lighter Pen-F styled camera for street travel. They have been waiting a long time for such a camera, yes. So that is kind of the trend or the buzz right now, is for these compact cameras. And there's a lot of competition there though, right? The new L10 that just came out, I'm still waiting for mine to come in. Of course, the GR series from Ricoh, and then the X100 series from Fujifilm. So for OM Systems to come out with something to compete in that arena, it's going to have to be, it's going to have to be basically an OM1 in a rangefinder style. And that's not going to be a small camera to cram all of that technology. If they come out with like an EPL7 with the same, let's say they come out with an EPL7 using the same guts as an OM5 Mark II, that's possible. I don't think it'll do well because, everybody knows that's a 5 to 10 year old design. Aside from the processor, I think it's a Digic 9 in there. I'm trying to think. Anyway, it doesn't have the OM1 processor in it. The OM5 Mark II has the EM1 Mark III processor. So it's going to most likely be, if they come out with a pen like an updated EPL7, it's going to be probably like an OM5 Mark II. So they're going to add phase detect, like as opposed to contrast detect, and then subject detect along with, I'm sorry, not subject detect, but it'll add phase detect with face detect, right? Human face detect and eye detect. So it'll certainly be a more advanced camera than the EPL7, which is not available here in the US, but uh, it's still not going to compete with the likes of the cameras I mentioned earlier, that have a lot more advanced features and a good uh, consumer, like a good user base, people that would buy it. So my guess is I would love to see an interchangeable lens camera similar to the L10 come from OM Systems. If they do that, so basically the 20 megapixel stack sensor with the latest digit processor and all of the features that the OM1 has, they're going to have to trim it down a bit because of the size, but that would be nice. EVF and interchangeable lens mount, but it's going to be the size of like it has to be the size of like an OM3. Just take the OM3. Where is my? Oh, it's in my bag. Just take the EVF. Just move the EVF on the OM3 over to the right side, and that's what we're going to get. At best, in my opinion. Either way, I'm excited to see a new camera and some new lenses come out, regardless of what it is. But I can't see OM Systems having the bandwidth, research, and development to come out with a camera that can compete with what's already out there in the compact camera market. These are all fixed lens cameras that I mentioned, right? Uh, they would have to come out with like an updated EPL7 with OM5 Mark II guts. That's going to be my prediction, right? So a little bit underwhelming in one sense to those of us that are in the ecosystem already, the legacy consumer base. But I think for new consumers, if they can make it stylish and exciting and weather sealed and offer things that you really can't get in other systems, like uh, some computational features, then yeah, that would be kind of cool. That's what I expect. Something like uh, something like the EPL7, but with OM5 Mark II, phase detect, USB-C port, maybe some the creative wheel on the front of the dial. That's going to be the closest we get at this point. I think the OM1 Mark III, we're at least a year out. There's no way that's coming this year. Uh, we're at least a year out, and the main thing I think we'll see there is not a new processor, but not a new sensor, but a new processor that's going to offer some very advanced computational modes, and then that'll have to trickle down from there. And yeah, so a 50 to 250 f4 would be really nice. That would be a lens I would consider uh, because the 40 to 150 f4, as awesome as that is, it doesn't give me anything other than really weather sealing over my 40 to 150 kit lens because the kit lens is sharp enough for what I do. And Henning, good to see you. And Henning says, completely disagree with every kind of pixel hunting. The 20 megapixel are perfectly fine, old but absolutely capable. Yeah, I mean, that is the philosophy of OM Systems and Olympus before that. 20 megapixels is enough. They're not going to veer off of that. They're just not. Um, they can't bump the resolution without sacrificing image quality in some shape or form, right? Otherwise, what would more megapixel be good for? Cropping, already have crop sensors, yeah. I mean, Micro Four Thirds is already cropped. It already has a very high pixel density. You know, going higher would be problematic in my opinion. A brand new sensor would be fine, and completely agree with wishing for a new pen. Yep. And I like to have search for the menus. Oh, interesting. Interesting. And wouldn't you welcome greater dynamic range and high ISO performance? Sure. I mean, if they can, they're going to have to do it with a new processor, though. They're not going to be able to do that with the sensor itself because it's off the shelf. And how you doing, Walter? Good to see you. Uh, and I'm already pretty content with the dynamic range and ISO performance that I'm getting. You know, I really don't have a problem as it is. Uh, you know, even without noise reduction, the noise performance is fine. The dynamic range performance is fine. I mean, regardless of camera, you know, because as you know, I have various cameras, right? Uh, I'd say probably the best noise performance camera I have is probably my Canon R8 that has the Canon R6 Mark II and Mark II sensor in it. You know, very big pixels on that. So it has a big bucket there to collect light and give us a very good signal to noise ratio. So, uh, and then I have the Nikon DF, a little bit older technology in it behind the sensor. So the noise performance is not as good as the R8, in my opinion, but it's very subtle. It's a very subtle difference. I really, I really do like the quality I get from the R8, but it's not like night and day difference from my Micro Four Thirds, in my opinion. I get it. Everybody has different tolerances for noise. You know, if you see one little speck on a pixel, you know, you go freaking nuts. I know some people, and then other people are uh, like me, they don't care about noise, right? If there's a little noise in the image, it's fine. And this is going to tie back into my antique radio epiphany. Like I said, that's kind of a too dramatic of a word, but yeah, I mean, if they can improve it through a new processor, because you have the analog to digital processor, you know, processing the raw images, the raw data that comes off the sensor. So if they can improve the AD converter and reduce noise and or improve dynamic range that way, lower the noise floor. There's a lot of things they can do around the sensor to improve those things uh, without having to come up with a whole brand new sensor, which Walter is aware of. You know, I don't mean to say that he's not, but uh, and good morning, Roger. Good to see you. And I did get your email. I looked at. I can't remember what it was now. I just did a quick skim of whatever it was, and I was going to come back to it. But thank you for sending that to me. It was interesting when I looked at it, but then I've already forgotten what it was. But I have your email marked, so I'm going to go back to it. And good morning, Marcia. Good to see you. And good morning, Linda. Good to see you. And David. Good morning from California. Wayne. Good to see you. And good morning, the great Vanzini. And Rob says, I collect antique radios also. I like little pocket ones. Yep. I thought about that. And then I got this, I found this old one here, this piece of crap, but it works. It's a little, it's a, what's this? It's a Cosmo. Anyhow, so I'm kind of set for portable. I also have a little Sony Walkman that has an AM/FM cassette somewhere. I was looking for the other day, and I have a Sony Digital. I have a lot of compact radios already. Not antique though, like the old Philips, you know, uh, ones. And I used to have a really nice Sony 1970s pocket radio. I don't know where that went. It's in a box somewhere. and some GE ones. And it says, I saw that it was very sad sounding. YouTube keeps shooting itself in the foot. Yeah. This was in reference to Jimmy Chang's video. I just hope it will be something small, capable, and not too expensive. Yeah, so it's going to have to be like $1,000 camera or less. And basically an OM5 Mark II in a rangefinder style. That's what I strongly believe we're going to get. And I don't have any inside information, just so you know. And good morning, Robert. Good to see you. And Coxon says, why is everyone obsessed with bigger sensor for Micro Four Thirds? I'm happy with the results I get from my OM1. And had images printed 3x4 with plenty of sharp. Yeah. I don't think anyone disagrees that 20 megapixels is not enough, right? It is enough. The challenge is the perception that OM Systems is not advancing by introducing cameras with higher megapixel sensors. There is a perception out there in the consumer market that cameras improve when they get more megapixels, and that's really a big selling point. And it's tough. It's tough, you know. It's hard to, you know, come out with a camera with the same megapixels year after year after year, even though every company does it. But they also have, like Sony has their 60 megapixel full frame A7R5, and now they introduced the A7R6, which has 66 megapixels now, right? Did they have to go to 66? Is anybody going to see a difference? I seriously doubt it. But they're not going to come out with an A7R6 with a 60 megapixel sensor, because they did A7R4 with 60, then A7R5 with 60, but they added that buzzword AI autofocus so they could try and sell it to you that way. And now they have the A7R6, which has quote unquote an improved AI autofocus, but also 66 megapixels. So it's just another box to check to try to get people to upgrade when you really don't need to. You really don't. What I meant is you don't need 66 megapixels, say, versus 60. And good morning, Gordon. Good to see you. So what about on the Panasonic side? Rumors continue about the G100 II, likely with the same sensor as the G9 II, smaller hopefully and less expensive, but likely not weather sealed. And no IBIS, right? In the G100 original. So if they can add IBIS to it and, you know, image stabilization in body, weather seal it, and then cripple it in the areas they have to because of the size, right? Because there's heat management issues most of all. That's okay. That would be cool. I don't follow Panasonic rumor site. I just follow the Micro Four Thirds one, which I assume would have the G100 Mark II rumors on it, but I don't recall seeing any. I mean, I've heard of that coming out time to time in the forums. But the problem with the G100 is it's very industrial in the sense that it's just kind of a boring looking camera, in my opinion. It's small, it's very capable, you know, the Mark I. And I when it was down to like $300 brand new for a very small window, I was very tempted to get one. But then I said, what am I going to do with it that I can't do already, you know? So I just sided against it. Just like the OM1 Mark II when it came out, fabulous camera, but I just couldn't see how much more am I going to do with that camera for the money that I can't already do with my Mark I. And suspect not IBIS though. Yeah, it has to have IBIS. I mean, if they can squeeze IBIS into a GR3 or GR4, whatever it is, and into an X100. They should be able to do it in a G9, G100. And Roger says, Rob, I have the OM1 and EM5 III and a bunch of Olympus lenses. New camera upgrade doesn't help me. More get out and shoot sessions is what I need. I can't even get all the features used in these. So true. I have the same problem. Multiply that by the number of cameras I have. I mean, I have trouble just getting this out. My little Kodak Chimera, but with the America 250 logo on it. I mean, I've been taking this with me almost every day somewhere. I've only taken 1 or 2 extra pictures in the last 2 weeks with it. And Linda said, I'd like an OM10, same body size, tilt screen, etc., but phase detect and animal IAF. So that would be better than the OM5 Mark II. I think the OM5 Mark II is just it needs to be updated to have OM1 guts in it. That would be freaking awesome. If they have an OM5 Mark III, but they somehow updated it so that it has all of the processing power of the OM1 as it should, that would be awesome. That would be that would be a camera on my short list. But I have an OM3 and an OM1. I don't know what I would do with an OM5 Mark III. To be honest, I have to stop. I have to stop buying cameras. I mean, I don't even know why I bought an L10, to be honest. I mean, every day I think about canceling my pre-order because it's not here yet. But then at the same time, I'm like, I really like that camera. But anyhow, they're going to have to keep the price down. They got away with the OM3 as it was quite unique, yes. In the Fujifilm X-E5, for me, a replacement for the Pen F, but the 40 megapixel sensor is overkill and focusing requires way more involvement than the OM3. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't like, I like my XH2, but I think a better choice for me would have been the XS20. Something a little smaller and with less megapixels. I really like the 26 megapixel sensor from Fujifilm. So, and the XS20 retains the standard PASM dial, which is a workflow I'm more comfortable with, rather than using dials and then them being useless to me, right? It's just not a workflow I really enjoy. But anyway, and Adam, good to see you. Greetings from the central US. And absolutely on point, yeah. So, what happened to my chat window? And Peter says, I always use the optical viewfinder. That being said, they should put some effort into reducing glare on the rear display. So I assume you're talking about like the X100, because that's the only camera I can think of that has an optical viewfinder that's modern, And I was reviewing the OM5 pics last night. I was kind of stunned how good everything was. Not my ability, but the color, sharpness. Yeah, you put a good lens on a Micro Four Thirds camera and it produces amazing results. And you offered some ideas for fixes for my fiddly feeling XT3. I fixed the issues with one, using the grip that came with it from MPB and seeing my trade-in value was half what I paid used. Yeah, it's tough. The XT30 Mark II. Yeah, I didn't get along with my XT30. So yeah, I ended up trading it myself for like half what I paid for it. Same story. I mean, XH2, it really produces beautiful images, but it's so bulky. I just don't find myself taking it out ever. I'm thinking, I hate to do it. I'm thinking about trading all my Fuji stuff in and just getting it out of my life. Uh, Despite the fabulous, I really love the 55 to 200, the 33 1.4, the 23. I really love the lenses and the glass. To me, that's the main appeal of the Fujifilm system, is their lenses are stellar. But I just don't find myself getting out with it. So that's why I was thinking, okay, maybe an X-T3. It has the 26 megapixel sensor I really like that I had in the X-T30. It has, you know, some flair to it, right? It's very nostalgic. But then the lenses I have don't really work well on that camera. You know, they're too big. My 33 1.4, my 23 1.4, my 55 to 200. These are ridiculously large lenses on a camera body like that. So then I'd have to start selling off the lenses that I love, because I had the 35 f2, and I had I had the smaller lenses from Fuji, and they were great, but I got rid of them all to get my 33 1.4 and 23 1.4 and my 55 to 200. And it just doesn't make sense for me to go back to an X-T3, then have to get all different lenses for it so that the camera is, feels normal in my hand and not bulky, because it doesn't have the grip like the XH2. On the XH2, the 33 and the 23 and the 55 to 200, they're all well balanced and feel really good. And I love the XH2 camera, but just the size. The size is what kind of sets me back time to time. And it's silly because I don't mind taking out uh, my Pentax. I just love my Pentax cameras, and the size doesn't bother me. And I talked myself out of the S1R Mark II and the S1R Mark I. I really wanted those cameras for the past year, and I just decided, for the same reasons I hardly take out my A7R5 or my XH2, which are already pretty high resolution cameras. Am I really going to take out an S1R or an S1R Mark II when I'm not even taking out the ones I have, right? And if they come out with a new, bigger sensor, I will be lucky to buy secondhand another camera upgrade from Olympus OMD EM10 Mark IV. Greetings from Greece. Oh, okay, Sophia. Uh, yeah, the EM10 Mark IV, nice little camera, a little long in the tooth. I'd recommend, if you look at OM systems, I would at least get an OM5, Mark I or Mark II. I would skip the EM10 series. And Shakabe, good to see you. And it was about a guy who was making a camera that you could interchange. Oh, that's right, the interchangeable. Yeah, and he had a Kickstarter. Now I remember. Yeah, that was kind of interesting, but the camera looked really bulky, right? Um, I feel like that's going to be so niche. He might sell a few, but I doubt it's going to really go anywhere. I met a retired architect who's been taking pics for 40 plus years. He said exposed to the left. Lee Hoy says exposed to the right. You're confused. Okay, so there's two trains of thought, right? One is exposed to the left, which means, try to well, let me start with exposed to the right, which most people are familiar with. You want to push the exposure as bright as possible without clipping highlights. And then exposed to the left is the opposite. You want to darken the image to the point that you're not clipping the shadows, right? And because you know, that way you get maximum tonality in the mid-range, right? You're putting all of the data into the shadows and the midtones to get better tonality and just all of that. You know, you're maximizing that side of the histogram. When you expose to the right, the idea is the same, right? You're trying to get as much data into the midtones and shadows without clipping the highlights. Uh, but I don't, you know, I wouldn't worry about it either way, to be honest. Okay. Um, Generally speaking, I think exposed to the right is the general practice to maximize the tonality in the shadows and the midtones without clipping the highlights. And that makes the most sense for most of the kind of, you know, like birding, things like that. Because if you try to pull up shadows and detail when you're exposing to the left, you know, you're going to get a lot of noise, right? And we have to do that a lot in wildlife photography. However, you know, pushing all of your data to the left side of the histogram without clipping the black maximizes the highlight detail, right? It does the opposite. And, you know, it optimizes, I know I'm contradicting myself, but it optimizes the midtones to highlights when you expose to the left. And sometimes that's more desirable. So just use the technique that makes the most sense for the image you're trying to capture. And I don't worry about it at all. If I see a high dynamic range scene, I just bracket it. You know, I exposure bracket it and blend it in post. It, yeah, it adds a lot of time to post processing, right? But that's the way I do it. And I do that all the time. Like I just did this image. Um, I just had to pull up. Like this image here is the OM3. And of course, I'm shooting right into the sun, so it's a very high dynamic range scene. But I wanted to recover the shadows down here and in the water, but I also wanted to maintain the highlights and the colors in the sky. So in this scenario, if you want to maintain the shadow detail, you're going to expose to the right. If you want to maintain the highlight detail, you know, the clouds and the colors in the sky and the gradations, you're going to expose to the left. That's the best way I can put it. If you want to do both, you're going to do bracketing. So this is only 2 frames. I did one normal exposure and one +2, +2 stops to get the shadow detail down here. So exposing to the left tries to maintain the colors and the gradations and the tonality, you know, in the highlights, and then exposing to the right tries to maintain all of the details and tonality and colors in the shadows. So that's kind of the difference. But yeah, I was kind of researching some sensors here, just to get back to this. But the Micro Four Thirds lineup, there's only 2 sensors here: the 472, which is in the OM1, the OM3, the OM1 Mark II, and then the 272, which is in the OM5s and EM5s. That's it. There is nothing else. Okay. So I have a bunch of transistors ready. Garage sale finds, yeah. Yeah, I have a few transistor radios. I have this one that I really like, but it needs to get recapped. The capacitors blew out on them. I would love to, you know, it's from the 80s. Good morning, everyone. I found from the ridiculously hot and smoky Rocky Mountains. Oh, awesome. I went to the Great Smoky Mountains a few years ago, and I got to the top, and it was literally so much cloud cover, hence the name Smoky Mountains. I got nothing. Couldn't see nothing more than like 10 feet in front of me. That was brutal. I was so disappointed. And good morning from Iceland. Looking forward to the solar eclipse on Wednesday. I tested the ND 10,000 filter today. Cool. Or 100,000. Yeah, you have to be way up there, right? Like 20 plus stops of reduction. And the only problem with the radio these days is radio stations tend to be absolutely crap, cutting all songs in half by talking and telling and listening every 5 minutes. What channel they're on, ridiculous. So I did find a channel here local, 94.7, that they don't do a lot of talking over the songs, and there are very few commercial breaks. They'll go 90 minutes without a commercial break. They'll just come in and give the weather and local traffic news time to time. But I find I kind of like the programming of an FM radio station in the sense that it's not just music constantly. Like I could play iHeartRadio or my whatever on my Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and just get nonstop streaming of music of a particular genre that I want to listen to. But breaking it up with a little bit of local news and weather and traffic, not that I drive that much, is kind of refreshing so that when the song does come on, it it's you kind of appreciate it more. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I find myself listening to just regular stations, and sometimes the commercials are fun. Most of them are just awful, but sometimes I'll hear a funny commercial too. So I don't know. I just kind of like that, and that's why I was looking at some more traditional antique style radios because they make a nice shelf piece here instead of these frickin' swords, right? I gotta have a nice shelf piece, and then I can change the station and listen to things. Uh, but I'm kind of stuck between getting something a little more modern that I can program stations in, so it's a digital with memory. Like some of the Sangeens I really like, the WR2, the WR22. I was looking at those two. Or going really old school and buying a vintage looking but modern, AM FM stereo radio. So instead of having the memory and the digital phase lock loop, you know, well, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Just having a dial that I tune manually, but still have the AFC or locking capability on the channel, so I can get it in nice and clear. Uh, that that would be enough. And I found some for like 35, $40 that I like. And then the Sangeens, I'm shopping eBay for used ones. Um, between 50 and $80 for those. I'm a little torn between the two. And I really like the old style Crossleys. The Crossleys are pretty cool. And they're still a US company, even though they probably manufacture everything in China, but it's still a US company. Anyhow, um, Linda says, dating myself, but I still remember when there was a movement, 6 megapixels is enough. Yeah, yeah. Uh, I mean, you can go back and say people were like, digital cameras are not real photography, right? I remember when that argument was around. And yeah, I remember the D100. I think I still have the picture that Walter and I and his wife, we've been friends for many, many years since like high school and college. Let me see if I can find that D100 photo you took of me. And this is going to be a young Rob Trek. Really, really young. My hard drive has to spin up. Nope, it's not that one. Ah, it's not here. Oh, here it is. Nope. This was, yeah. Where is it? Oh, well, I can't find it. When is this one? This one is from 2018. Yeah, that's when you guys knew me well. Uh, yeah, I don't see it. Anyway, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I thought I had it right here, but it's not. It seems the OM3 is very popular, whereas the OM5 not so much. When you look at the used market OM5s everywhere, why would they continue down that path instead of improving popular cameras? Uh, that's a good question. I don't know how well the OM5 is selling compared to the OM3. From my perspective, yeah, the OM3 seems to be doing better than the OM5, but I don't know that for a fact. A lot of people really love their OM5 and just don't want to spend, $2,000 on an OM3. So I don't know. I'm sure they have their own market research team that decides for them or helps them decide what cameras to make. And let's see, the G100 Mark II, I would take a peek at. Yeah, I would take a look at it, but I don't think I would buy it. From the sensor size chat, I'm not opposed to more megapixels, but how about OM being the one to accomplish a global shutter? Yeah, taxing, but they can be one to overcome the hurdles. So right now, the biggest problem with the global shutter is they're really expensive. I mean, nobody's going to pay double the price for a global shutter Micro Four Thirds camera. It's just not happening. And OM systems would lose, I think, some of their advantage, not just in price. They're already competing with full frame cameras at the price points that they're selling at, and APS-C certainly. But there's no way they could compete with, if they had to double their price. And John, good to see you from the UK. And 100% for 1 minute in, but the weather is unpredictable. Okay. And Thomas is here. Hello, good to see you. Just back from my first Sunday photo walk since Charlie, my faithful photography assistant, a 13-year-old shelter rescue dog. Oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. Uh, yeah, it's hard when you lose a friend, right? Um, the G100 is better shooter than most people give it credit for. Yeah, because it has a great 20 megapixel sensor in it. It's very I mean, it's a good little camera. I don't I don't fault it. And if you're looking for something that size, there's um I mean, it's even smaller than an OM5 if I recall. And cheaper, right? It's a few $100s cheaper than an OM5, and I think image quality wise will do the same. And Linda says, I do need a new cam, but will go used. Will defect from Pana to Ollie though. Oh, okay. I prefer the Olympus over Panasonics, generally speaking. Look forward to your soon to arrive LX10. Marlene has done some great videos about hers. Yes. Uh, and Rob, I meant the OM10 as a successor to the M10, but your idea sounds good too. Okay. And good morning, Eric. Good to see you. And Heather says, And I did not get my camera yet, Eric. It's still pending. Still pending. Hopefully this month they'll get some stock, but we'll see. I mean, I ordered it back in May, right? So June, July, August, 3 months now I'm waiting. I'd like to see AI to look up stuff in pics. Maybe an OI share similar to Google Lens feature. Surprised none of the editing software has this ability. Lightroom has some degree, I think that. I don't use Lightroom enough, but it's so taxing on the system. You have to run the AI like overnight over several days to index. I mean, it depends how many photos you have, but to index your entire catalog. And then you can start searching for faces at least. But there's other AI software, third party, that will search for animals and whatever else, right? And good morning, Darko. Good to see you. And Shri, good morning. And 40 megapixels in your Fuji, how good is the file croppability? Well, I don't really use it for wildlife, but yeah, it crops in and you still get really nice fine detail. If I shot wildlife, I would definitely appreciate the extra detail the 40 megapixel would give me, because but I have to buy like their super telephoto lenses, and it still wouldn't give me the same reach as I get with the OM system lenses that I have now, aside from their 800 millimeter, but then I would lose a stop of light. You know, it's kind of, it gets complicated, and I just don't overthink it. I'm not going to, I decided I'm not going to use my Fuji or any of my other cameras for wildlife. I already have, in my opinion, the best wildlife camera there is, uh, in the best combination, right? The 300 f4 with the 1.4 teleconverter with my OM1, hands down to me is the best bang for buck wildlife camera there is. And yeah, it's not perfect, but I've gotten images I'm extremely happy with, that if I spent the money on, say, a Canon, because my R8 will do 30 frames per or 40 frames per second with rolling shutter, of course, but there's trade-offs. And I know Fuji has some really good telephotos, but then I'd have to trade a little bit on the either reach or aperture. So ultimately, I was like, it doesn't make sense to invest. But the short answer is it crops very, very nicely. And you do see extra detail. Let me just take a quick look. The trick is the autofocus. Um, I think so. Here's an example, right? Here's the OM1 with the Leica 25 millimeter f4. Probably not the sharpest lens ever, but uh, then I cropped into scale. So I got 158 pixels on the OM1. I got 245 pixels on the XH2. And for roughly the same surface area, the lenses were a little bit different because this is a 55 millimeter Zeiss. But anyhow, you can look at this image and get a feel for the difference in resolution. So like right here, this resistor here I cannot read the numbers on it. I can see maybe an 11 here, but if you go here, you can see it looks different. It's not an 11. It might be a 1-3-2-3. But then when you go down to the A7R5, you can see it's actually 7-3-2-3 because the A7R5 has really good detail resolution. And then when you look at the resistors over here, you know, it's a complete blur what those numbers are. Over here, you can start to make out a little bit. And over here, you can make out a little bit more. Like, if you look at this resistor, you can't really be for sure 2374. But oh, wait, no, it's 2372. And then you get down here, and maybe it's, yeah, it's definitely 2372. 4532. Don't know. And definitely can't tell. So that's the test I did. It's hard to match unless I adapt the same lens to each camera and do the same thing so that we can actually eliminate the lens as a variable here. But I think it illustrates the point that if you have more megapixels, you're going to get more detail, you can crop in more. It's just as simple as that, right? And the OM3 has a large battery. Do you think you could reduce the size while keeping all the specs except using the smaller battery and sell it at, yes, I think you can do it. They may have to update the existing battery that's like in the OM5 to have a higher output, possibly. Because think about it, the OM5 Mark II is basically the same thing as the EM1 Mark III. But the M1 Mark, you know, the M1 Mark III, of course, used the larger, what is the BL1 or BLH1, I think. But it used a larger, higher capacity battery. But they were able to get this basically the same tech in the OM5 Mark II with a smaller battery. So I think they can do it. They would just have to cripple it a little bit, probably, so it maybe it won't achieve, you know, 50 frames per second with continuous autofocus, but if it can do 25 frames per second with continuous autofocus and subject detect, that would be enough, right? Something like that. I think they can do it. I think Jimmy prefers the 26 megapixel sensors too. He mentioned the old lenses are not up to the 40 megapixel one either. Okay, uh, I don't recall him talking about that. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't. Obviously, he did. But all I have are my 20 megapixel sensors. I don't have any 26 megapixel camera. I'm going to get the L10, which has the same sensor. Then I can maybe do some comparisons. But I'm not going to have the same lens, am I? Well, I will have my Deluxe 8 and LX100 Mark II, which it's complicated. Jimmy has all the cameras, as well as Emily. She has them all too. She could do those kind of tests and give a decent opinion. I traded off my XT3 because of the autofocus. Yeah. I didn't find my XT30 autofocus that bad though. It was fine. I didn't have the Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV, whatever they're up to now. But it had a very similar autofocus system to the XT3, if not the same, and it was fine. And have you tried the Sony A7R5 for any wildlife use? No. I just don't have any lenses for it. I think the longest lens I have for my Sony is a 85 millimeter, you know, portrait lens. So, but the problem with the A7R5, it's a very slow camera. It only does like 5 frames per second on a good day. You know, it's not a Sony A1. which can do like 50 frames or whatever it is. It's a lot faster. I cannot get more than, I mean, I average 5 frames per second at best on that camera. So, you know, if I want to do bird on a stick, maybe. Like I said, I don't have any long lenses for it. I'm just not going to buy any long lenses for it. I mean, the Sigma 500 f 5.6, I think it is 7R5. It's really better on a more capable camera system or camera body like the A1 or a Nikon Z6 III or something like that. And let's see, I'm just kind of, if you had one small but capable lens you would get for a smaller Fuji, what would you pick? Um, I'm a little torn between the 35 f2 and the 23. I think it's an f2.8, the Pancake 20, or is it a 28? I think it's the 23. Let me see. Yeah, the 23 f2, the 23 f2.8. Either of those lenses. I like the 23 2.8 because it's a little more pancake, but that would be the lens I prefer. It would be great like on an XM, the XM camera and their XE5, the XT30. It'd be great. The XT50, any of those cameras. That's a great lens to have. The 23 f2 is probably a little sharper, and it's faster by one stop. So if you need a little more light than the 23 f2, but I'd go with the f2.8 just for the pancake. I love going to the beach and listening to a little AM stations, farm reports and all, yeah. And Darko says the Grundig shortwave radios are cool, or old German tube style, yeah. You know, the problem is I don't want one, say it's working and then it breaks like a year or two later and then I can't get it serviced, or it just doesn't make any sense to pay to get it fixed. So if I'm considering just a modern vintage looking one, like I thought this one was really nice. This is a Crosley, I forget the model number. I can get this for 35 bucks. Also has Bluetooth built in, so I can use, okay. Uh, yeah, $35 for that. I mean, I should just get it, but I had a D100, but now I have a D80 as my dedicated monochrome CCD camera. Nice. I have a D80 and a D200. Those are my two old Nikon DSLRs. I have a D40 somewhere that kind of works. Sometimes the shutter gets stuck because the grease is getting old. And still have my D100. They're okay, yep. And I miss those 70s long winter nights with my dad's shortwave radio with the big glowing dial for tuning. I could get LA Laker games in rural Ohio. Yeah, wow. Um, the old shortwave. Yeah, I looked at some of those too, but I don't know. And the Odd Pro says, I'm a radio engineer, and one of the best performing small AM FM I've ever used is the Kudosin DX286. It uses a modern car radio chipset, $85 on Amazon, lots of info online. Oh, Interesting. I'll look into that. Um, I better bookmark it now. Give me 1 second. I need to bookmark that radio. I mean, I get good enough reception for the stations I listen to anyway. Because they're all local, but QUODOSEN. Oh wow, it just comes right up. Oh, it's actually, yeah, this isn't. I was looking at the Texon like 330. Um, but I'll add this one. Well, did I add it to the right list? Did I make a list for my radios? Let me see. Add to. No, I think I just added to my wish list. 85 bucks, not bad. Cheaper than the Texon equivalent. So it goes into my wish list, which is right here. All right. Yeah, so these are the radios I've been looking at, if anybody cares. So I've added this one. I'll look at this one. I was looking at wow, that's 26 bucks now. I like this one. You know, I'm looking at FM radios that ideally have the DSP chip in it at least, you know, for FM. So I'm kind of ruling some of these out, but this one I believe has the DSP in it. This one definitely has the DSP chip in it for FM. And I was looking at these XH Datas, they're getting good reviews. I like this Studebaker. This does not have the DSP, but it has some style to it. And then of course the cranes. And then I look at some watches sometimes. But anyway, that's my current list of stuff. I have to leave, but I'm predicting that September end, Panasonic will announce an MFT rangefinder style photofocus body and rebooted versions of the canceled lenses. Yeah, that's cool. And rebooted panny lenses will be great, yes. And the Opera says, in my humble opinion, the current 20 megapixel stack sensor is fine. OM system needs to work on AF performance first and foremost. Yes, I agree with that 100%. I think they're going to need a newer, faster processor that can take advantage of the new stack sensor that they're using. So I suspect part of the reason we don't get 4K 120 is because the Digic 10 processor just cannot process a 4K 120 video. So if you get a faster processor, that's going to inherently improve autofocus, right? Because it can sample faster at the faster refresh rate that the chip is capable of. I mean, I'm just spitting it out there, but I think a new processor could make a big difference. Which combo would you prefer? Oh, between the 300 f4 with a teleconverter, the 1.4, or 150 to 600. I prefer the 300 f4 with the 1.4 teleconverter because of the size and weight. But it depends. Ultimately, the both lenses will give you great results. So for example, if I take the 300 f4 with the teleconverter, I'm only getting up to 420 millimeter focal length, right? Whereas the 150 to 600 will go to 600. So the question is, if I shoot both subjects at the same distance, I'm going to have to crop on the 300 f4 with teleconverter to get the same field of view, right? So I'm going to lose resolution. And what I found was that the 300 f4 with teleconverter is sharper than the 600 millimeter, but after cropping in, because of the shorter focal length, I get about the same amount of detail. So there's 100 different ways to look at it, but I tried to look at it in a couple ways that would matter. And I have it on my page here. This is the 300 f4. So I had to crop in on the 300 f4. I didn't have to crop, you know. This is the field of view that you get. Oh, this is with the teleconverter. It's pretty close though. It's pretty close. I have that image and I have this one. I thought I did some other comparisons. I did. Why aren't they on this page? But I mean, long story short is I found that I was getting about the same amount of detail regardless of which lens I used, based on trying to frame everything exactly the same. Now, if I put the 150 to 600 at 300 millimeters, and I just used the 300 millimeter without the teleconverter, and I got the same frame, yeah, the 300 f4 is way sharper, okay, at the same field of view. The question is, when I zoom out to 600 millimeters, am I going to get more detail than the 300 f4? And the short answer is no. It's really close though. It's really close. So I just prefer the smaller size and weight and getting virtually the same image quality as I would with the 150 to 600 zooming all the way. But the 150 to 600 is cheaper but it's heavier. For the AI search, I was more thinking about identifying birds, wildlife, like the Merlin app. Searching your library would be heavier lift on the end. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Wow. That would be crazy though if you could just upload to your editor and then they'll tell you, oh, this is a blue, great blue herring. That's kind of neat. Off topic, but it seems as if only a few folks on your live stream are posting to Photos Rob Trek community on Flickr. Is this due to decreasing use of Flickr by photographers in general? I don't know. You know, it could be me, right? I don't really talk about it very much. Um, and I have to participate in it really to keep the community going, which I haven't done a lot lately. I post there myself time to time, but not very often. And I haven't been in there in a few weeks. So it's probably more lack of participation on my part. Because, people join that community to interact with each other and or interact with me, right? And if I'm not there, the guy that started it, yeah, it can fall off a little bit, right? Um, it's probably more to do with that than Flickr itself. And Fuji 23 is pretty darn good. Yep. And sorry for your loss, Tom. Oh, okay. Wait, I didn't know OM released an OM3 Astro. Yeah, crazy, right? There's there's a friend of mine that bought it, or someone I know that bought it, and seems to really like it. But I just didn't see any point to spend that much money on an Astro camera when you can buy pretty good Astro setup for about the same amount of money, you know, and get a better results. Do you think OM Systems will release some additional weather sealed Prime, smaller, similar to the 25 and 17. I hope so. I don't know though. The next one up would be probably the 45, weather sealed, and then the 17, right? So 17 and 45 will be the next line, next in line. And Audra says, I have both the DX286 blows away the Texan. Oh, okay. Good to know. And Wayne says, I sent YouTube vintage style radio channel to, oh, okay. I may have seen it already, but I don't know. But I was kind of really heavy into it for a little while. I've kind of backed off because I've narrowed it down to just a simple AM FM with Bluetooth. And then I'll just use an app to do internet radio, which will get me worldwide through the Bluetooth. I know it's not the same as an actual vintage. But I feel like I should just repair my radio, get it recapped and cleaned, you know, everything's scratchy. Rather than buy another one. I hear modern TC for Z lenses are very good. Yeah, I don't know. I've not used it. I'm trying to think. A friend of mine, I think, is considering the TC. He really likes it, but I don't know if he bought it yet. He rented it just to see. I just like getting new camera fixed every so often, so anyone coming out with a small new something will grab my attention. Yep. And by the way, your shirt looks awesome. Very dapper. Thanks. It's just a variation of two other shirts I own. I think I have three of these. Blue, light blue, and then this red. It's a, I bought these on eBay auction. I think I paid $15 for these. It's a Banana Republic, but I like the style. It has this ribbon here, which is to reinforce the button stitching, so your buttons don't just come loose. It's more for style, but the idea being is to reinforce the stitching for the buttons. So I kind of like it. But thanks. 43 Rumor said there is an OM system announcement coming in September. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I haven't heard anything myself personally. And Rob is always dapper. I try to dress up and tidy up before I do a live stream. I'm sure there's exceptions throughout the years, but generally I try to at least show a little respect to my audience for coming and seeing me by dressing up. Because if I just came out here in a t-shirt or a sweatshirt and messed up hair and didn't shave, I feel like that's just kind of rude. Not, you know, shows you don't really care about your audience. That's just how I feel. And I always try to dress up and be presentable when I go out. I think it's kind of a lost. It's a loss. What's the word I'm looking for? People just don't dress up anymore. You know, they just go out in their sweats or pajamas or whatever out in public when they go shopping. And, you know, you go down the streets of, you know, you do any street photography and you know, when I walk around town, people are just, they just don't dress up anymore. And I don't really care, you know, what people do. You know, you do you. You know what I mean? But for me, I like to just dress up a little. I'm a little disappointed that that's kind of fallen away where people don't feel like they need to dress up or be presentable when they go out. But it is what it is. You know, I'm just going to dress up as best I can. Rob, will you be photographing the solar eclipse on August 12th? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not planning on it, but Yeah, I'm not really planning on it. It doesn't interest me for whatever reason, a solar eclipse. It's challenging. I kind of the challenge in of itself is interesting, right? But then the end result, is pretty simple. It's just an eclipse. There's if I'm gonna do any kind of astrophotography, like I'm gonna do the meteorites uh next week or the week after. And these are high effort, high reward type. Well, the meteorites is not even high effort. You just use live comp, right? But the rewards are much, much higher in other types of photography, like birding, you know. Um, I just don't feel like the bang for buck on an eclipse is there. Uh, and if they can announce an astro camera, there's no reason they cannot announce a monochrome OM3. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. And Adam asks, do you find yourself using the color wheel on the OM3? How much customization do you do with that wheel? Can you assign other functions or strictly recipes? So you cannot reassign the color wheel, the creative dial. It's set to color, mono, whatever the four choices are. I don't use it other than to occasionally shoot black and white and use the art filters. I do like to use the art filters. I never use it to dial in the color saturations and things. I know there's a lot of people that like to try to come up with their own recipes because you can adjust the saturation of each color and thereby getting potentially a different look. But I'll give you an example of why I don't really use this. Let's say you're taking a picture of 3 cars and you have a red one, you have a white one, and you have a yellow one. So red, yellow, and white. Okay. And you dial in some recipe. You saturate the reds, you desaturate the yellows, and you take a picture. So what you're going to get is a very, very bright red car, faded yellow car, and no effect on the white car. So you know ahead of time, potentially, of the scene you want to take and the colors that are going to be in that scene. Like I just gave you the 3 colors, red, yellow, white. So you can develop a recipe based on what you want that image to look like, right? You want a highly saturated red car, you want a desaturated yellow, and the white is not going to have any effect. Or you could do the opposite, saturate the yellows, desaturate the red, right? So you can come up with recipes to take and change how that image gets saved. The problem is, when you go out and you do street shooting and you come up with these recipes, you don't know what colors are going to be in the scene necessarily. So any recipes you develop, you're not going to get the outcome that you want, right? So if I go down one street in Alexandria, there's a lot of reds and greens, virtually no blue colors. But if I develop the recipe to saturate the blues and not do anything to the reds and greens, if I take a picture, the picture is going to look exactly the same as if I didn't dial a recipe in at all. Now, the way people get these recipes to look different, regardless of the colors in the scene, is they do white balance shift, right? They shift the white balance a little warmer, a little cooler. They adjust the tint sliders, a little more red, less green. with more magenta but less yellow, things like that, right? So they're doing white balance shift and tint to the recipes, and then maybe giving a little more saturation on some individual colors. If I'm going to do all that, I'm just, I'd rather just go into post-processing and make all these adjustments on my computer. I don't necessarily, and get exactly what I want for the scene that I just took a picture of, versus setting a recipe, then randomly getting colors and white balance shifts that may not work for every scene that I'm taking pictures of. And then you can take it a step further and have several recipes, right, set up in a custom mode or whatever. But then you have to remember, okay, this recipe's for this recipe's for that, and it gets complicated for me. So I never use the color wheel and dial in things. I have a couple of videos early on with the Pen F where I did dial in some, I think it was a Kodachrome 25 or a Kodachrome 64 kind of look to it. But the main thing was, it was mainly the color, the white balance shift and desaturation of certain colors. It's nowhere near as capable as say the LUT system that I'm going to get in my L10. But I probably won't even use the LUT system because I just would rather do everything in post-processing. It's just me. I do like the I do like the art filters, the pop arts, the dramatic tones, even sometimes the vintage. I do like and the grainy black and white. I like the art filters because those are completely different than the color wheel. The art filters actually do shifts to the hue of the color itself. So this yellow might be shifted a little bit to be a little more red. So it looks more orange. You can't do that with the color wheel. All you can do is desaturate the yellow or saturate it, but you can't shift it to be more red. And the art filters do that. It's all preset. But the art filters are true color science, right? And I like using those. So I don't find myself using the color wheel. I use mostly the art filter in black and white. Rob, do you have an actual website of your photography? I do not. I just use Flickr. Flickr and Instagram. My photography is not that good, so I can't imagine. I've gotten complaints about that, uh, saying why don't you have like a portfolio online of your photos? And I'm like, I don't know. If they were good, maybe, but I don't think they're that good. Uh, they're just okay. Nothing worth me taking the time to put up a portfolio. You know. So if you want to see my photos, I have my Instagram. I mean, time to time, I'll make an image that I really like. I really like this one. I think I might print that one today. I meant to do it the other day. But the rest of these, they're just okay. I don't, I like this one, but I'm not going to print it. It's just an interesting shot. Yeah, this whole stack of photos in Instagram. So, yeah, I've gone down that far, probably 100 photos, only one I think is worth printing. So if I go create a portfolio online, um, I would have to go through so many photos just to find enough that I think are worthy of being in the portfolio. So anyway, no, I don't have one. Off topic, working on weight, but near 50 is hard as hell. The days of just powerlifting no longer work. Need to reduce calories and walk an hour a day. Yes. So the best tip I can give you is just calorie count. Come up with what your and there's apps to do all this stuff. I use this one called I don't know what it's called. Let me find it. MyNet Diary. But I can calorie count. I can put in specific foods, do barcodes, all that stuff. And then you set a goal, right? Say you want to lose 50 pounds in 3 months, for example. Then it'll tell you, okay, this is how many calories you should eat a day. And then it tries to balance that for you into macros. I mean, you can get really into it. Uh, I'm still trying to lose about 10 more pounds just around my belly. It doesn't really show when I'm wearing a shirt because I'm very slim, but I still have a lot of fat, subcutaneous and visceral, that I want to get rid of. Although the rest of me, a little bit on my face, lose little bit more of these puffy cheeks, and then I'll be happy. So about 10 pounds of fat. I'd need to gain muscle though. I've started weight training a little bit because I need to build up my physique a little bit. You know, broader shoulders, bigger chest, stronger forearms, things like that, right? And I thought OM System weather sealed the Mark 17. They did. They did. Did I make a mistake? They did the 17 and 25. So they need to do the 45 and the 12. That's what I meant to say. The 45 and the 12 would be good. Solar eclipse is 4% in DC area, New York City 9%. Okay, Shri. I know Shri will probably do it if it's doable. If I do it, I'll go with you, Shri. But I don't know if I want to take the time to do it. And if you say it's only 4%, I assume that means only 4% of the sun is going to be covered anyway. Our photo club has a scheduled trip for Milky Way and Deep Sky Friday at Georgia North Carolina border. Doesn't look like the weather will cooperate. Bum. Yeah, it's tough. I had to cancel my photo group trip to Shenandoah for waterfall, astro, and sunset because of the clouds. Um, you can, yeah, this week is August 12th. They had the meteors, but I got a lot of meteors without waiting for the 12th. They're going on right now. Just put on live comp and you'll get hundreds of meteors coming in. It's amazing. Yeah, you don't need to do that, Shri. 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Let me show you my photo. Uh, give me a second. I'll pull it up. I mean, I posted it to the WhatsApp, but it's been up. If you think 50 is tough, wait till you get to 75. Oh, are you talking about age? You're not talking about 50 pounds? Yeah, if you're talking about age 50, I'm 60. So it's not that hard. Once you kind of get into a routine of cutting calories, like all I had today was a glass of water and a coffee this morning, black. And I'm not going to eat until about after the stream. I'll probably eat something, but that'll be about 18 hours of fasting, intermittent fasting. So I'm trying to do an 18-6 uh, just as a baseline. If I can do more and cut calories more, I'll be happy to. But there's days I take off, like yesterday. I ate 3,000 calories yesterday. I typically eat 1,000 or less. Yesterday I ate like 3,000 because we had cookies and chips and it was a party, right? One of my friends got her photos into an exhibit and there's free food. And I had breakfast. I had pancakes and bacon. Uh, but today, yeah, I'll probably back off a little. I'll probably be back down to 1,000 to 1,500 calories until I hit my target. It's a little tough in the beginning. If you're trying to cut back calories at first, it is a little tough because you're used to eating and your stomach is craving and you're hungry. That's a little tough. But I got past it after a few weeks. Now I can go most of the morning without eating, but there's still some mornings I wake up a little hungry and I just power through it. I use the color wheel button to rest my pinky finger. That's funny. So I like on the Z52 with picture controls where you can pick up, load your recipes, and use other people's as well. Okay. Z52 is nice. It has the latest Nikon processor in it, so you have all the different subject detect modes that like the Nikon Z8 and Z9 have. And that's what they need to do with the OM5 is, because you can get a Z50 for $1,000 and it's a way more capable camera than the OM5 is for most things. The OM5 has some unique things about it that you can't do in a Z50, but yeah, that's, yeah, there's a lot of competition at $1,000. So I get an email when you post new stuff to Flickr. Always enjoy browsing. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know you could set that up. And Adam says, I always appreciate your humble perspective on your images, Rob. Many a photographer would benefit from that perspective. I continue to hear your perspective on my own work. My images are incredible to those who know me and adequate overall. Yep. I get that a lot too. People think I'm like some amazing photographer, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm really not, but thanks, but I'm not. I'm just okay. And Darko says, I was 283 pounds about 7 years ago. I cut in half my portions and started walking 9 to 10 kilometers every other day and made it to 100. Congratulations. But have to cheat Sunday where you can eat junk food. Yes. You have to treat yourself sometimes, right? If not treat yourself, allow yourself to eat for social reasons, right? You don't want to be, I totally respect people that can go to a banquet and not eat like everything in front of them. I can respect that, but I don't want to be that guy that just goes to a banquet where there's so much wonderful food prepared and not eat. I just can't do it. I have to eat it if so. Now I'm making myself hungry. Talking about food makes you hungry. Watching every sitcom or K drama on TV makes you hungry because they're always in a freaking diner or cafe. Always, you know, either having breakfast or if it's a K drama, they're having tteokbokki, you know. Just made myself so hungry. You have a lot of light pollution near you, Rob. How far do you have to travel for night sky? To get to a Bortle 4 or Bortle 5 sky, I can drive about 2 hours. Shenandoah Mountains. It's currently rated at a Bortle 4, but I'm sure it's probably closer to a 5 than a 4. And where I live, it's like a Bortle 9. I mean, it's bright. I can shoot it ISO 100 here. I almost don't even need low light, high ISO here because it's so bright. To be seen relevant in 2026, they need to move forward with a minimum resolution 24 megapixels or 2027. So I don't know. 2027 maybe, late 2027, but I doubt it. Honestly, don't think they need 24. I have 60 on my Leica and don't see much of a difference. And OM for macro 20. You stack it, it's super microscopic. You can zoom in for date. Yeah. Well, I think, Anthony's point is not about is 20 enough or is 24 enough. It's about what we talked about earlier to seem relevant because of the perception of OM system not progressing, right? They're going to look like they're not progressing if they stay at 20 megapixels. It's just a perception, it's not reality. But perception is very real. If there are 20 megapixels 10 years from now, it's a problem, you know? Um, Once I became diabetic, I became a whole lot more serious, yes. I'm trying to avoid all of that. And Robert says, a 1,200 calorie lasts 2 months, and it's tough. Fasting 18 hours also keep busy, helps keep mind off. Yeah. Um, yeah, 1,200 a day is pretty good though. I feel pretty good at 1,200 a day. But I can tell you when I was down to about 600 or 700 a day for a few days, and I started to get weak. It started to affect me, and then when I ate something, I felt a lot better. And they think fasting between dinner and breakfast at least 15 hours increases your chance of becoming diabetic or decreases your chances. I guess. I don't know. I do it just to minimize the number of calories I eat, not because of any benefit of, because there's a lot of benefits that they claim about fasting. Uh, I do it primarily just to minimize the number of calories I eat. And then if there's any additional benefits on top of that, great. And 104 kilos, and was thinking of Manjaro, but want to do natural. I don't know what Manjaro is. And Chinese buffet, broccoli, beef, or mixed veg pork first try. No, thank you, Darko. Uh, we need to stop talking about food because I'm getting really hungry. Let's look at some images I took this week. So super wide, 10 millimeter f2 on my Sony. And this is 46 megapixels. Here's another one. This is 60 megapixels. And yeah, so when I crop in, if there was a bird on a stick right here, I would I would probably be able to identify it. Uh, but yeah, this is just a tree shot that everybody does. You point up and you take a shot. Oops, I'm zooming. This one is 50 megapixels because I cropped the top and the bottom off. This is a single shot. This is from my OM3. This is a 20 megapixel HDR shot. So I did bracket 3 shots on this one, maybe 5 shots. It came out okay. I wasn't quite happy with the fine details on this, but it's moving. Everything is moving in the frame. You know, even the deck here is moving a little bit, so I didn't get quite the sharpness I wanted. Uh, I thought this is a fisheye lens, but this tree was actually bowed like this. I didn't quite get the shot I wanted because there was light peeking in through here, and I exaggerated a little in post-processing, but it didn't really hit the shell as much as I wanted to. This was, I was trying to get a sunset, but the clouds were too low. So all I got were these sunbeams from the sunset. This is from my OM3. And this is a HDR shot. So I did bracket, but then I got this, I should have stopped the lens down a bit more. It'd have been nice to get a starburst here instead of this sky, but it was really smoky here, like the Great Smoky Mountains. These are actually just low clouds, but uh, that's part of the reason the sun got all blown out was there was just so many clouds. So waterfall, I did part of the waterfall. The rest of it's way up here. But I did high res shot mode on this one. And if I zoom in, you can see a lot of detail here. And then of course the high-res shot mode makes the waterfalls look like a long exposure when it's not really a long exposure. This was shot at yeah, 1/60th of a second. But when you use high-res shot mode, you get a lot of detail. And is this, oh, this was downsampled. This is a high-res shot mode shot, but I downsized it because I couldn't fit it. I couldn't upload it to because it was too big a file. I should have the high-res one somewhere. Yeah, this is the Sony camera, but this is a 10-second exposure. It wasn't very good. So Shri, this is my OM3, but look, this is a 10-second exposure, but I got an asteroid. I got so many asteroids in this shot. All over the place. There's 6 right there. There's another dozen of them right there. And there's some more over here. Those are planes. In 10 seconds, I got all of these asteroids. There's here and here, down here. So, and this was on August 6th, right? This was 3 days ago. So if I was running on live comp for several minutes, my God, I would have hundreds of frickin' asteroids. Let's see. This might be here's the high-res shot version. So yeah, lots of detail in here. And I shot this at what, f5.6? Yeah. I should have probably shot at f8. I mean, the Sony would probably still be sharper if I had the same focal length, but you know, whether it's this image, I'll put this image next to the 14 megapixel image. And this is what I mean, and this is what everybody's been saying. Do you really need more megapixels? It's the same exact image, but one has been downsized to 14 megapixels. And over here is the original one. Almost original. I had to do a little bit of a crop. It's only when you really zoom in, even when I zoom in, I can't really tell that much difference. So anyhow, there's that. Let's see. This one here, yeah, this one's been cropped down to 36 megapixels. But there's no reason to have 60 megapixels really for most photography. And this kind of gets back to my antique radio story where I was shopping all these different radios, and I really got into it. As you can see, I have a huge list on my Amazon wish list, and I also have a huge list on my eBay watch list. So I'm watching about 40 or 50 different radios right now. And I thought to myself, over the last 5 days, I've spent more time searching for radios than I have actually listening to a radio. And that's kind of when it hit me. I was like, all this stuff I do online, researching cameras, shopping cameras, looking at specs, I spend more time doing that sometimes than I do going out and taking photos. And that's when I kind of stopped. And that was one of the reasons I kind of talked myself out of the S1R and the S1R Mark II. Because I just think about that moment when I was looking at all these radios. I said, I just spent way much more time shopping and looking at radios than I did actually listening to one. And then, like I said, I made that connection to my photography. I spent a lot more time looking at specs, sensors, comparing images, watching reviews, than I did actually going out and taking pictures. And I do that often, partially because, I have a YouTube channel, but I don't know how much different it'd be if I wasn't doing YouTube. I'd probably be doing the same. So that was my epiphany. And again, I'm overstating that, but I guess that'll be my final message to everyone is go out and shoot. Spend some more time taking photos than thinking about all this gear. You know what I mean? I know many of you do, and you don't care about gear. You've picked the camera you want to use and the lenses, and you go and you shoot. Uh, and time to time, you go out and you buy a lens or camera because it's interesting. We all like gear. We all like new cameras and lenses, but just take a moment and step back and think about: Are you really are you really enjoying the hobby, the journey of taking photos? Do you enjoy taking photos as much as you enjoy looking at gear and comparing gear, buying gear? Is that really what you enjoy, or is it the photography itself? You know, I I I question myself quite a bit the last few days. Am I really enjoying the photography, or am I enjoying the gear and using the gear? And is that why I'm not happy with my photos? I don't know, but I'm gonna dig deep. I'm gonna dig deep and figure out what it is. Because I think it's fine either way. If you enjoy gear and the technology and what the technology can do, and you can take advantage of it time to time, but that's not your goal is, or not your passion. If your passion is in the gear and technology and the design, I totally get it. It's like, I wear a mechanical watch rather than a smart watch, right? Smartwatch is way more accurate, certainly, and has a lot more features and is more functional. But I appreciate the engineering. Uh, so I'm more. I don't know. It's just something that hit me when I was shopping for radios. Because if I really wanted to get the best radio, I have to look at this one that Odd Pro just recommended. That would probably be the best radio for reception for taking out into the field, right, and going places. The best radio for my bedroom, would be probably the Sangean, right? Uh, that has a really nice box wood design. The Sangean, like the WR1, the WR2, not the WR, yeah, not the WR2, the WR1. Anyway, uh, or the WR16. There's a lot of Sangean models with wood boxes that have this very warm sound to it. But I'm getting back into this. I'm just thinking about the gear and shopping the gear too much, more than I listen to the radio, because honestly, my little Amazon device here, if I just say, Alexa, play something, right? Like if I say, Alexa, play 94.7 The Drive, it'll just play that radio station for me. Uh, okay, Alexa, stop. So, and that's how I've been listening to radio most of the time. I have the same device in my living room, in my bedroom. So why am I shopping antique radios and all this stuff? I don't know. I spent a lot more time shopping for radios and looking at radios than I did listening. So I end it there. Um, I will call it. I see there's a little bit more chat here, but I need to call it here because now I'm really hungry. But thank you everyone for joining me today. I really appreciate it. We had a pretty diverse conversation today, but you never know right when you're live what's going to happen. I try to keep it photography related, but I did want to bring up the the thing about the radio shopping and it how it related to my photography and not in a positive way. It really made me reflect a little bit. But you guys as always are awesome. Thank you for being here with me for 10 years now or 10 plus years. I hope you've subscribed and I really appreciate your support. So you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday, God willing. So eat healthy and exercise. I want us to be all together for a long time. So thanks again. I hope to see everyone again soon.